Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is feeling betrayed by a close friend. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Right. We are not professionals. We are not trained in this. So please take our advice as you see fit. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, Sam, you have a check-in topic for us this week.
I do. So I got this from an article in glam.com, which is called Why the Goblin Mode Dating Strategy is Such a Success.
Goblin mode.
Yeah,
Are we
absolutely.
talking about like, Lord of the Rings style goblins? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Can't go out during the day, emerge from the earth. Sometimes can get...
You're talking about orcs.
Yeah, we could get bred with orcs to create urukai.
Yeah. I got it. That's like the most evolved dater is the urukai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Orc plus goblin. Anyway, thank you for that fun Lord of the Rings. I got to show off my Lord of the Rings knowledge there. Yeah, absolutely. Don't get to whip that out very often.
That's what she said. So anyway, going back, tell me what goblin dating mode is.
Okay, so goblin dating mode, and apparently goblin
according
mode
to
was
the
like
internet, not like you and I.
Yes, no, absolutely. Apparently
goblin dating mode for me is just like, what is it? Let me think of that joke.
Okay, well, when you have it, just let me know.
Okay, very good.
Apparently goblin mode was the Oxford word of the year.
What?
Yeah, I know, and I had no idea that this was happening for 2022, which is like, it's already March, babe. Like, we are so far behind the zeitgeist.
We are not cool. Hence the Tolkien joke run at the very beginning.
Yeah, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so goblin mode is basically the idea that you go into every first date 100% yourself and unapologetically so. So, like, the idea is that, like, the world's going to end. So, like, why put on any sort of, like, face when we could just go in and be like, here's the every part of me, you can see it, like, do you want it or do you not want it? Because I don't have time to like pretend like I'm not something that I am. And so it's like you're coming in like full goblin, like you're just like, here I am, like you're seeing the most like at home, like not put together version of me. Which,
if you're watching the YouTube video, if you're subscribed to us on YouTube, Sam is doing some sort of gargoyle pose right now.
I'm a goblin. But yeah, it's basically just like you show up to the first date in sweatpants and you've got snacks in your bag and you're just like ready to be who you need to be.
All right. Okay. I can't say that I'm against goblin mode. And to be honest, I do refer to myself as a troll a lot in conversations with my wife when I am my most unkempt self in every meaning of that word, like physically, emotionally,
for sure, in
my clothing way. I say that I'm in my troll era. But yeah, so how do you feel about this?
I mean, I think that it is really helpful for us to come in being like, here's who I am. Right? Like,
the strategy is pretty good. Yeah,
for sure. I think that like there is a little bit of it that is like kind of like trying to scare people away when it comes to goblin mode. Like, you're going to be like your absolute worst self. And I think we could like,
that is so
maybe
true.
Like find a happy medium
are you under
between
a bridge somewhere?
Absolutely.
Trying to kidnap children. I'm not really sure how productive that will be.
I think that, like there's something wrong with like putting on like real pants and like doing your hair before a date, right? Like that doesn't mean that you're like betraying your true self or whatever. But I think I appreciate the idea of like, we're going to just like let each other see all of the things that we like to do. And we're going to, all of the stuff that we're working on and all of that, as opposed to like trying to suss it out over time. And I'm on board with that, right? Like, we've talked a lot about put the things that are important to you on your social media profile, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't wait until the 7 months in for you to start having conversations about like what you're looking for in a relationship, right? Like all of that stuff I think is really important. But I don't like the idea of people like referring to themselves as goblins. That makes me sad in my heart.
You know what? Originally, I agreed. Like, I was going to be like, can it be like, I don't know, unicorn mode or something? But then I'm like, I guess I love the goblin pride, because it also like centers prettiness, and pristineness.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do really love about this is if you're going at something in goblin mode, I can't believe this is a thing that we're talking about almost 5 years. Like saying this out loud. Like, am I dreaming? Are we hosting a show about mythical creatures and their relationships? I don't know. Anyways,
is a show that I would definitely make with you.
Yeah. Ditto. Anyway, so what I do appreciate about this mode of being is we see a lot of people like withholding love or waiting to date someone or like waiting to say something until they are like their most healed self or they've got their quote revenge body or whatever. Right. And I just think that in all facets of our being, we're never going to be this like perfect, pristine. We're not even going to be fully healed. Like, there's not like a threshold that we walk through where we're like, we're going to be the unicorn. We're always going to be the little goblin because that is our true state. So I like the idea of it.
Yep. I also like one of the things that it says in this article is to like post an unflattering photo of you on your dating profile. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Yes, please totally. Do that.
Who started something like that like became like a part of her movement is Sonia Renee Taylor, the author of The Body Is Not an Apology and the founder of that movement. If you're interested in it, it's all about like radical self-love and radical self-acceptance.
She's awesome.
Sonia, before that book was even published, Sonia and I know each other from the poetry world years ago. And so like, a decade plus ago, we were friends on Facebook and Sonia started this thing that was, I think it was like Bad Picture Monday, where every Monday she would change her profile picture to an unflattering picture or a picture she didn't like about herself to like,
I love that.
Take the power away from it. You know what I mean? To like, to take away the facade of perfection that we put out on social media and to like disrupt the inner monologue in our brain that tells us we can't share an unattractive photo or that our photos have to be perfect or whatever. And that became like a movement where there was like hundreds and hundreds of people across Facebook changing their profile every Monday to an unflattering picture. It was like a great exercise.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is really cute.
Yeah. And I never did it, but it was also like, honestly, I think it was like 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, look at this cute, unflattering picture of me. And it's
and it's just like you looking perfect.
Yeah. Like I couldn't participate in it then because I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready to have that radical acceptance of myself,
I get it.
Anyway. Okay, so to wrap up this check-in topic, if you had to create a new goblin mode of like a new mode of being that you are now or you would approach dating as in your life now, but it was a different mythical creature, what would yours be?
Yeah, I was thinking Snorlax mode. Snorlax is a Pokemon. I don't know if you know this, but its thing is that it just like, it's massive and it just sleeps. And so like at one point when you're playing the game, like the thing is like sleeping on your path and you have to figure out how to wake it up and you like can't. And then like when it's fighting you, all it does is want to go back to sleep, like heal itself.
God, so
which
funny.
Is like, as somebody who's very tired this morning, I'm a Snorlax. Like I just am like, that's my mode of dating is just like as sleepy as possible.
That is so funny. I wonder what mine would be. Okay, I think I would be in dragon mode, Oh. Yes. Okay. I would be in like dragon mode, kind of like Game of Thrones, rare. Very, very sought
very
after.
Hot.
Yes, hot. Loyal.
Likes to be ridden.
Yes, loyal and also... but only by a select few that speak that speak a very specific language to me.
I was unsure about this metaphor when you told me you were going to pick it, and now I'm just like really into it.
Yeah. But also who just likes to leave. You know what I mean? Like can just like independent, but likes to be ridden.
Oh, absolutely. And if you treat her wrong,
dominating.
She will burn down an entire city full of innocent people.
Totally. That's me. Dragon mode. All right, giddy up. Let's get this letter going. So today's letter is from Becca Betrayed, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the land of betrayal. Hi, Sam and Sierra. First off, let me sing your praises for all the insight you've given me and so many others over the years. Your humble musings are so appreciated. Now let's get into this predicament I've found myself in. In June of 2019, I started dating a man we'll call Garrett, he, him. Garrett and I had a hot and heavy relationship from the start. It was a whirlwind, but it was full of love and respect. 2 months later, I started a new job and met my coworker / new friend. We'll call her Shannon, she, her. We became fast friends and spent every weekday together at our jobs. For a while, I felt like I had it all. New relationship, new job, new friends. That all came to a screeching halt when Garrett and I went through a messy breakup in November of 2020. It was messy, mostly due to the fact that there wasn't any one big thing that happened. We promised during the breakup that we'd always maintain a degree of mutual respect for one another. This meant the actual break wasn't immediate, and it took a few months for it to stick. During this time, Shannon and Garrett would occasionally text. Although they knew each other through meeting at my birthday party, I wasn't too worried because they were forthcoming about their conversations, and it always seemed platonic. Upon entering my current relationship, so this is a new one, I blocked Garrett on everything. However, Shannon was still very much my friend. We started growing apart after I found a new job, but we were still close friends. Fast forward to October 2022. So what is that, like 1.5 years later? Yeah. Shannon texted me out of the blue saying that Garrett had been a really great and helpful friend. Her mother was in a devastating car accident in which Shannon became her primary caretaker. She then went on to say that she and Garrett would be going on vacation the following month, and she didn't want me to be, quote, caught off guard when I saw pictures of them on social media. I was stunned. It felt like a gut punch. I didn't know how to react. My first instinct was telling me to flip out, curse her out, and ask a million questions about what kind of friend he was to her. But after some thought, I took a page from the JBU playbook and blocked her on everything without another word. It's now February 2023, and it feels like it's just happened yesterday, especially because I just learned that this vacation was just the two of them. Now, I'm no fool, and I'd like to think I know each of them pretty well, so I know that this is highly likely that they're in a relationship, or at very least having sex. But even though I'm happy in my current relationship, I cannot move past this betrayal. For a time, they were the two closest people in my life. They know more about me than just about anyone else, and above all, I introduced them. Doesn't this violate some kind of girl code? Whatever happened to never going after a friend's ex? I don't know how to proceed. I literally have nightmares about the two of them. Do I just stick to my guns, leave them both blocked, and hope that the pain goes away over time? Do I confront him? Do I confront her? I'm stuck. My brain won't stop swirling. What do me and Shannon's mutual friends think about this? What do they say about how they met? Do they talk about the previous intimate conversations I've had with them? Please help. I am in desperate need of advice that I know only the two of you can provide. Thank you so much for all that you do. Love, Becca Betrayed. P.S. I'm currently in therapy and this matter has been discussed, but I could use the additional insight.
Well, thank you for that P.S. Appreciate it. And I just want to start by saying that I am so sorry that you are feeling so betrayed by this. I'm sorry that it is sticking with you in such a unshakable way, and that, you know, you're having nightmares about it, and that you're in sort of this big psychic swirl around what this means and how people are responding, and whether or not you can ever find a way forward from this thing that has happened to you. And that's just like a really tough place to be. So just want to name that Sierra and I see you in how challenging this has been for you. And we're going to offer you some advice about how to maybe shift your perspective or move towards something different right after this break.
All right, Becca, welcome back. And thank you so much for trusting us with this letter. I first want you to know that, like, I absolutely believe you when you tell us what this feels like in your body. This is real. This is hard to accept. This feels like the punch in the gut that you described. I totally understand. And I believe you about how this is affecting you physically. Like, you're feeling like it's not just like an itch that you have to scratch. This is a sensation of injustice that you're holding in your heart from two people that you previously felt safe with. And so it feels like it doesn't compute that they've moved on in this way. That makes sense to me. And I've been in similar situations in which I thought, how dare they move on?
Sure.
How dare they, like, to put it bluntly, like, how dare they have a life outside of the relationship in which I had with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think in this situation, if you break it down, what feels so tricky is this idea that, like, you introduced them, and that in our minds, that's how they exist forever, as these two separate entities.
Yeah, for sure.
But they are, they are independent, uncontrollable adults that because of life circumstances develop feelings for one another, period. That is unfortunately how I see it from my point of view. But I want to say to you, like, my point of view is a lot less clouded with the emotions of this confusing life experience. It's confusing for our hearts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, to be in a situation where you are also really concerned about the perceptions of the people around you too, right? Like, what are people going to think about the fact that they're dating now, right? What story are they going to tell? And feeling like the need to control that narrative too, right? That need to be like,
really relate to that.
I really have to create the appropriate and true story, and everyone around me needs to understand that appropriate and true story in the exact same way for me to feel like my pain or my anger is justified, right? Like, that feeling of, like, needing to just sort of rail against people and be like, no, this is the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. And have people be like, okay, right? Like, that can be so, it can be so challenging, especially when there's something in you that feels so big and people don't seem to understand how big it is for you, right? Like, they don't seem to get that this is, like, a really, really big deal. Like, that's a really hard and painful place to be. And unfortunately, the solution to this sort of change is not actually about getting people to believe your story differently, right? The actual work that needs to happen in that is to let go of the need for people to understand your story in the exact same way that you do, right? It's to let go of the need to have everybody behave in the exact same way that you would like them to behave, or to let go of the need to say there are rules that govern who can date whom and when, and people need to follow those rules, and instead be like, those rules are just mine. This is something that I wouldn't do, but it doesn't mean that it's something that other people wouldn't do. And it doesn't mean that they're bad or mean or awful people for doing it. It just means that they have a different understanding of how relationships are supposed to work. And that requires a lot of decentering ourselves from our understanding of the world. And it can be really hard to do that when we're in a shit ton of pain, right? Because we're just trying to get people to see us. We're just trying to be like, don't you see? It hurts. It hurts that this is happening. But actually, the way to let go of some of this pain is not to get everyone onto your side, to not to like lobby everyone to agree that, oh, these people are so awful, but instead to find a way where you can build up your capacity for compassion and empathy with your ability to see the complexity of this situation. It's not just that this friend wanted to betray you and started dating your ex, right? Like that's a really neat way to look at the story. And that's probably how it feels. It's not that. It is way more complicated than that, because we as humans are way more complicated than just one story, one narrative about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And honestly, like, typically it helps me to think about things as more complicated, more nuanced. But in this situation, as an outsider, and this might come off as a little bit of tough love, and I mean it as that respectfully, like, while totally acknowledging that I know this feels hard and is hard, period. It's simple from my perspective, from over here, where I'm not clouded by this pain and by this personal association. I can say, this person, you know, Shannon, right? Met your boyfriend when you were together. You two broke up. They maintained friends and became closer during hard events. And they're two consenting, independent adults that can, you know, that what got into a relationship. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's how we meet people. And I know I know that you're struggling with this idea of like girl code and loyalty, but a lot of that stuff comes down to like our monogamy obsessed culture that's rooted in ownership and rooted in really like struggling with the fact that everyone comes to us with history. Everyone comes to us with, you know, with other people that helped shape them into who they are. And
that the people that we had ownership of get to leave and go out and do their own thing, right? Like also
quotes
that
on the had ownership for those who couldn't see Sam doing the air quotes.
Yes, I forget that we are like a sound-based medium.
Yes. And so here's my tough love, is that this feels really painful. And it is really painful. And it feels confusing and it feels like a betrayal. But if you sit with that discomfort, if you sit and examine that discomfort, and I don't just mean like, oh man, I feel it, I'm angry, and I want them to know my anger. Like, sit with it for longer than that. Journal about it. Write out, what are you feeling? What is behind these feelings? Why are you feeling this way? I feel betrayed. Why? Because she was my friend, and it makes me uncomfortable now that she's dating someone. Why? Because what? I'm spitballing here, but because I'm afraid they share intimate stories about me. You're not that important in their lives. You know, like, I don't, that came off really blunt, but I just mean like our anxiety makes us think that people are talking about us when they're not. And so again, why I don't love him anymore and I don't want to be with him. I'm happy in my relationship, but I feel uncomfortable that he's with somebody else. Why? Well, because she's my friend. Why does that make you uncomfortable? Would it make you more comfortable if it was a stranger? Would you care less if it was a stranger? Yes. Why? Well, because I couldn't picture them together in such a way. Well, why do we feel uncomfortable if our exes moved on? Again, it comes back to ownership. It comes back to insecurities. And I'm saying all of this really bluntly. And I have 100% been in your shoes before. I have 100% felt this betrayal, felt like my friends fucked me over by moving on, fucked me over by their choices that hurt me, right? But here's another distinction. They're not doing this behavior, these choices, to intentionally hurt you or to be hurtful. Their actions are not hurtful. You are being hurt by their actions. You are hurt by their actions. And that is maybe just a distinction that's helpful to me, but that helps me process through some of my pain where I say, oh, it's not their responsibility to change their behavior. It's my responsibility to excavate why this is painful to me and to nurture what hurts. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Which is also the more effective way to move past the hurt, right? Because again, you don't have ownership. You can't control these two people who are living their lives and seem to really like each other and like are gonna pursue this relationship with you no matter how angry you are with them. And so like if we keep telling ourselves the way that I'm going to get over this is if they stop doing this thing that is like I'm not even involved in, right? Like they're over there, like living their lives and I'm over here hurting myself over and over with the thought of them living their lives, right? Like if the way that we think we're going to heal is by getting them to change something, then we're not going to heal because like we have no control over them, right? The only thing that we can control is our response to those things. And so that's the invitation here, is to do exactly what Sierra said. Like, why does this feel like a betrayal? What other ways of interpreting this situation might be more helpful for you to find a way through to healing? Right? Because right now you're picking one that is like, they're awful. They hurt you intentionally. All of your friends are talking about this and you can't understand why. They broke some sort of rule, right? That's one narrative, right? That is one interpretation of what's going on here. And that's an interpretation that's going to continue to hurt you over and over again. Yeah. Right? So the invitation is, how can you decide on a different interpretation of what's happening here, right? These are two people who I have very fond feelings for because they are both we're very important people in my lives. And now they are complicated and they are coming together in a relationship, right?
Yep.
Our friends are probably talking about this in a way that is understanding of the nuance and complexities of this, but probably most of them don't feel weird about the fact that this is happening, right? They're probably just like, this is how they met.
As outsiders, it sounds like they were friends that met as friends and then started dating.
Yes.
But I'm an outsider and that doesn't hurt me. I get why it hurts when you're on the inside.
For sure. And I have friends who have met, like, who are dating people that they met when that person was dating another person in the friend group, right? It's me. Not uncommon.
I met my wife when she was dating someone else and I thought, I am going to break them up. But I was 20 and malicious, and that's not what your friend was doing.
Absolutely. Right. So I think that the way that you can find healing is about really deciding on what perspective or narratives are going to be places where you find more comfort than the one that you're currently living in, right? The view that you're currently taking on what the situation is and what the situation means. And that's what I mean about like decentering yourself, right? Where it's like, this is not actually some sort of meaningful thing about me, my life, my relationships. It is actually like really apart from me.
Right.
It has no reflection. It has no sort of say or judgment on me at all. It's happening really apart from me.
Yeah.
And that can be really freeing because it means that we don't have to decide, or we don't have to like interpret everything that they're doing and say like, oh, what does this mean about our relationship with each other? Right. And these people are blocked too, right? Like you're not even seeing them. They're not even in this, right? Like you are choosing to decide to spend more time in this place.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge here, right? Is like, how do you decide to spend some time in a place or an understanding and interpretation that's actually going to bring you more peace than this one is?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to talk about the blocked for a second, because you said you took a page out of the JBU playbook and blocked. And honestly, yes, that's the only page in our fucking playbook. But I want to talk about why we block people. We block people so that we don't have to, so that we can help us uphold our boundaries, so that we can keep our life, simpler emotionally, or, so we don't have to see things that trigger us. There are 100 reasons why we block people, but we don't block people. No, we block people for all sorts of reasons. But the point I'm trying to make is, I feel like when you blocked your friend, you blocked her as an act of retribution, or as like you blocked her to send her a message that you weren't okay with this. And that's okay. If you don't want to be this friend, her friend anymore because she's dating your ex, that's totally okay. But now you're going to have to do the emotional blocking, which is I'm no longer going to let this hurt me. Yep. I'm no longer going to, I'm going to say, you know what? I want these people to be happy. I just don't want to watch them be happy. You know, you got to get to a point where it's like, you got to get to a place emotionally, and I don't know how you do this, but you have to get to a place where you, instead of saying like, man, fuck them, I want to confront both of them. I want to be like, what are you doing? Why did you do this to me? And instead say, I intentionally put distance between myself and both of these people, and independently they found each other. And you know what? That feels uncomfortable to me. So I don't want to see it happen. I'm going to keep those blocks up, but I'm going to wish them well so that I no longer feel this injustice in my body.
And I think that practice is going to be really helpful, right? That idea of, you know, you're probably going to continue to feel emotional about this, right? The goal isn't to like tamp down the emotions and pretend like they're not there, right? The goal is to find tools to redirect those emotions into a place that's going to be healthier for us. So maybe it is when you're thinking about them on vacation together, instead of going like, oh my God, what such a betrayal. Oh my God, are they having sex? Oh my God, like what are all of our friends thinking? Can you instead say, okay, I'm noticing that this is coming up again. And the thing that I do in this moment is that I just wish them peace, right? I say, we are separate, we are living separate lives, and I don't need them in my life, but I just wish them all the best, right? And I wish myself all the best, and that's sort of the way that you process through it. But the question for you is like, you're in this sort of cyclical thinking about this thing that is so outside of your control and that will never be in your control. So where are the places where you're interrupting that train of thought, that sort of continuous going back and back and back, and finding an off-ramp into something else, into a different way of being, into a different way of thinking? And I mean that like in the moment, right? What is the thing that you say to yourself when you've noticed that you're like, I'm stewing, I'm thinking, I'm going all over with this stuff. Okay, I know what this is. I know what this is. This is my anxiety. This is my need to control. This is my betrayal coming out in ways that aren't helpful for me. Okay, so what is the thing that I start doing instead of that thing? And I want you to like pick that. I want you to write it down. I want you to decide on something to try. And then whenever this stuff starts coming up in you, I don't want you to want to do what you're doing, which is trying to like rail against people and like try and get them onto your side, or do the thing where you are somehow like reading this all into like your understanding of yourself and the world, but to find a different way, to try a different path. And maybe this one thing will work and another thing won't, but you need to be trying something different, because otherwise this is just going to keep spiraling, because all of this, every single element of this is outside of your control, except for how you are responding to it.
Yes. Thank you for articulating that, Sam, because I was just sitting here kind of feeling uneasy because I feel like this is a tricky letter, because I really do want you to know, Becca, that like, I know how much this hurts, and I know how real this pain is. And I know it's a lot easier for us unattached to this, all the way over here in the void, to talk about this from the bird's eye view unemotionally. Like it's my job right now is 1,000 times easier than sitting in discomfort and telling yourself to feel something different. And that is what I'm going to ask you to do, because here's the alternative. The alternative is this hurts you forever. The alternative is your friend, quote, betrayed you forever. And I just don't think it's that simple. Our pain wants it to be that simple, because our pain craves justice and our pain craves clarity, and we want there to be a good person and a bad person, and we want there to be a place where we can put all of our uncomfortable, bad, hurt feelings and say, this is why I'm feeling this way. I want to put it here. And instead of like sitting in those feelings, excavating them, self-soothing, even like I'm atrocious at self-soothing. And also I know that is in my entering my 37th year, That is the number one thing I need to work on, because life is always going to be unjust. Relationships are always going to be confusing. I'm always going to take things way too personally, and I really need, because if I want to be the compassionate, emotionally regulated person that I want to be, I have to learn how to hold myself, hold my feelings, comfort myself, and say, like, it's okay that you feel hurt by this. It's okay that you feel betrayed and rejected. You're not. I've got you. These people are just living their life and you can't control them. And if it ever helps you, like, this is what I do to tamp down my feelings of jealousy, because I also want to say that I think there's some underlying jealousy in this feeling.
Sure.
Jealousy often comes out as feelings of, oh, you betrayed me. I often just like flip the script. All right, so you moved on with this person that you told us little about. You're in a happy relationship. And what if your ex was like, I can't believe you moved on 2 years after we broke up? Like, wouldn't you feel a little like, why are you taking
yeah, right. You don't have control over me.
Yeah, exactly. So I often try to just like flip things around, remind myself I'm not for everyone. Not everyone is for me. My feelings are all really valid. And also they are 100% my responsibility, which is very, very hard. So please know that, like, as much tough love as we've given you in this letter, there's a ton of empathy, and I see you in this pain, and I know you're working through it. And I know it's confusing to have our relationships change shape too, especially with a friend. Like, it's confusing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It sounds like everybody's lives look really different than when they did when you were with Garrett,
For sure. Absolutely. And all of this is shitty. All of this is really challenging. And I think that the reason why Sierra and I are trying to be as honest as possible with you is because we just want to like shake some things loose, right? It feels like there's sort of a log jam right now that's happening around this where you just can't seem to move past it. And so I hope that you take this sort of perspective shifting, this invitation to challenge yourself to try something different, not as an attack, because that's absolutely not how we mean it, but instead as an offering to just push through the place where you're sort of stuck in this moment and find something that's going to allow for more movement, right? Good, bad, ugly, wonderful, helpful, challenging, but we just need more movement in the situation because you're so stuck in this understandable and very challenging feeling of betrayal and hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my darling, we hope that this helps even an inch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for writing and for trusting us with your question and with the pain that you're experiencing. We love you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in getting more content from us, or if you're interested in getting any of our episodes ad-free, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as a feed with ad-free episodes. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship meme, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his music on Spotify and his podcasts. And remember, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to feel hurt, to feel frustrated, confused, scared, vulnerable. All of those uncomfortable feelings aren't actually meant to be rectified right away. They're not meant to be dealt with right away. Sometimes they're telling us something. Sometimes they're just bringing us into our bodies. But most importantly, sometimes they are just a reaction to the uncontrollable world around us. They are unavoidable and they are undeniable. And if all else fails,
just break up.